So,
all right, we've got a review to do, guys, and it is on an anime.
Boy, do we ever.
I've been trying to mentally and emotionally prepare myself for this, guys.
Who passed this one?
I need you to find your center. I passed this one.
Okay.
All right. Hey, don't.
It wasn't me for once.
I actually like this anime.
All right, thank you. So, Drifters is a show about. It's kind of a little bit complicated to explain the premise.
Not really.
I mean,
Dudes fight.
I guess not.
That's the premise.
And to be fair, they exposition the crap out of it in the first couple episodes. So they'll legitimately. There's a character who will just sit there and talk to the other guy and be like, "This is what's going on."
They do a lot of telling.
But
they savage the shit out of each other too.
So yeah, Drifters starts off the first episode. You're introduced to a character by the name of what's his name? Toyohisa? Yes, Toyohisa.
Shimazu or something?
Yeah, Shinmazu Toyohisa. And he is a samurai in the feudal era, and he's having this crazy battle.
From the Satsuma clan.
From the Satsuma clan. He's having this crazy battle, and he's trying to stop this army from progressing, and they're slaughtering everyone, and they damn near kill him. He's like been stuck with a bunch of spears and all this stuff, and he's like on his deathbed, and then he immediately gets teleported into another realm, which is basically just a long white hallway with doors along the side, and down the hallway a man sitting at a desk with like a computer and glasses on and stuff like that.
And a newspaper. He always has a newspaper.
A bespectacled man.
He has some
with
weird,
very strange eyes.
Very strange.
Yes. He's got the what are those spiral eyes from Naruto?
Sharingan.
Not
or whatever?
Sharingan. It's
Dasengan.
no.
I don't
that's
freaking
not,
know.
But if you watch Naruto, you know what I'm talking about. The spiral eyes. Not that. Anyways, so yeah, he's teleported to this realm where he sees this guy, and as he starts to walk towards him, he gets sucked into one of the doorways along the side of the hallway, and teleported into another world where there's elves and an opposing army. And long story short, it turns out that he is what they call a drifter, meaning that he's a warrior throughout time that has been on his death, like near his death, and is teleported to this world to save it from other. What they call, I think they call them ends.
The Endo.
The ends, which are basically also just drifters except bad ones. So
And they're all historical figures.
And they're all historical figures. You have your Joan of Arc, you have your Nobunaga, you have
Zaendo de Gozaru.
Let me ask you. So that's kind of like the premise of the show, basically. And then it's this battle between the drifters and the ends trying to.
And the drifters are trying to save this world. The ends want to annihilate it. It's your basic premise.
Exactly. Now, let me ask you, did you guys watch it subbed or dubbed?
Subbed.
Okay, I watched it dubbed.
And apparently it was a treat.
It was it was something.
Yeah?
Yo.
Who dubbed it? Funimation?
Funny.
Yes, Funimation did dub it.
Yeah.
And
Did a shitty job?
I mean, so a couple of like the lead characters were okay. I mean, pretty standard.
The same standard 5 people that Funimation has?
Basically.
They've been expanding. But okay, so Funimation
they found more people that are willing to work for next to nothing.
Basically. So Funimation, I think, needs to come to the conclusion that unless it is an Americanized accent in the sense of like your Bacano or your even 91 Days with that slight Italian sort of Americanized accent.
Yeah, because that's what I was getting to. So the lead characters had like an American accent.
Yeah.
However, there were people like Joan of Arc, and there was another character who was a Russian character.
Anastasia.
Yeah, and so they, instead of just Americanizing them, which I wish they would have, they decided to go with accents.
It's the Yuri on Ice syndrome.
Yeah. So, and some of the actors that were playing these characters are pretty.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this the dub?
I think it's the trailer for the dub. Let's see if they speak.
I mean, you may just hear the main character speaking, and he's okay. Or not at all.
Very intense.
This world that very day, and I'll be damned if more than a handful of months have passed.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, he's fine.
A warrior.
Like the 2 or 3 leads are fine.
Rising sun. Who could he be?
But it's really.
Wait.
Only
Was that a female voice actor for Yoichi?
Well, he looks like a girl, so I might as well give him a girl actress.
It's worse.
Yeah, you're only gonna hear.
You can throw the best possible examples of humanity into play. When all's said and done, I'll be the winner.
That's the girl who voices main character from Tanya the Evil.
Yeah, you don't get any of the funny accents, I guess.
The dub from Tanya the Evil wasn't bad either.
So the English sounding characters were fine, but
it's when they tried to put the
They tried
almost
to-
racist level accents
and
on the characters from other countries.
Oh, they're bad. They're so bad that they're hard to understand at times.
Wow.
Where I'm just like, what did they say? I couldn't understand what she was saying because they're talking fast and they're using this weird accent that is not their natural accent. So that threw me off. So maybe you guys were better off with the sub. And then one other thing that pissed me off.
That's almost always the case, though.
Here's another.
I do like some dubs, but you're
here's
right.
I don't know why people watch dubs.
I
don't.
Convenience.
It's like you're either too lazy to read it or I don't
Well,
get it.
no, it's if you want to be
That's
able
me.
to focus on
That's
something.
why I watch dubs because I don't want to have to read it. I want to be able to listen and.
I like watching dubs if I'm doing something where I can't just stare at the screen for 3
Yeah.
hours.
But
You know what I mean?
But if you're doing something else, then do something else.
Well, but also
Is that you're talking about multitasking?
Yeah.
either multitasking or I don't want to have to be reading the whole time. I want to be able to watch what's going on.
Yeah, what if I'm eating or what if I'm folding laundry or what if I'm doing like sometimes I don't like to just sit there
guess.
and stare at the screen. I want to be able to, move around.
Well, maybe
or,
you should just learn Japanese.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
That's what they would say on the internet. If you posted that on a forum, they'd be like,
just learn Japanese then.
maybe if you guys were legitimate podcasters.
anime weeaboo, learn some Japanese.
Yeah.
Jesus.
But
That's what you'd get.
anyways, what
But
was
yeah,
I saying?
I don't know.
You were talking about the accents.
Funny needs to stop trying to do accents
Oh,
unless it's
yeah.
Hetalia, which is a
Well,
parody.
And I was going to say the other thing that upsets me about because I specifically watch the dub because I don't want to have to read the whole time. But then they do the thing where the creatures on this planet
the elf creatures,
they
right?
speak in a fake language, so I have to read the subs anyways.
Boo-hoo.
Can I
And
just
I'm
say
like, that's why I watch the dub is I don't have to read.
You guys,
That threw me
you guys
off.
are coming in a little hot.
Sorry, I'm just upset about that.
Can I just say that threw me off hardcore when the elves started speaking in the first episode and it wasn't Japanese and I was
You're
just
like,
like,
what is that?
like I thought that I was hearing it wrong and that I just like didn't realize what Japanese it was.
I was watching this with a friend who asks a lot of questions that he doesn't need to ask when I'm watching anime with him.
Okay.
And he acts like I know. He acts like I have all the answers to his questions, and I could not get it through to him that they were not speaking English or Japanese. It was a fake language. I was like, dude, it is not Japanese. He's like, I'm like, relax.
That's funny.
It was so obvious to me immediately that it's fake.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's still kind of. It threw me off at first until I realized that it was a gibberish type language, but. Anyway, back to the review of Drifters.
That's just like one thing because you don't have to watch it dubbed, but because I did, that's one of the things that upset me was one, the bad voice acting with the accents,
and two, you ended up having to read
the fact that I
subtitles
still had to read it even though I specifically watched the dub so I don't have to read.
Okay. Anyway, enough with the dubs.
Yeah. So that's
the dub sucks. We get. Right. It sucks. Right.
yeah.
Okay.
I would absolutely not recommend you watch the dub.
Well,
Okay.
yeah. It's like why watch it when half the characters are dubbed or subtitled anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. And then also, like I said, you just can't understand some of the people, and I'm like, I have no idea what they just said.
I appreciated the show's pacing. It's
Really?
yeah. I mean, it's very much we're just gonna kill people the whole time.
But that's because there was no plot.
Yeah,
We
but,
have an underlying
I mean,
subplot, but there was you were going nowhere. It was the same thing for 12 episodes.
Sometimes I feel like I'd rather have a strategic battle going on than having some really low key boring plot line.
I see what you're saying, but it's like,
I mean, it's to each his own.
so with pacing, you have, I feel like this is one extreme, and then there's the other extreme of a show like, what's the show that everybody got on me for not liking?
HBK Euphonium?
Yes, you have a show like HBK Euphonium, which is just super slow the entire show, but then you have this show, which is just nonstop action, and that's all it is the entire time.
But there's no so when I associate pacing with something, it's specifically with plot.
Yeah.
I consider pacing to be how quickly can we get through a particular plot line from A to B. And this didn't feel like there was we got an idea of what the plot was, the Ends versus the Drifters, but there was no actual
sure.
There was no
Progression.
Exactly. It was just fighting,
Yeah. So
and then the end is like, oh, by the way, we're all in random places. Here's a cliffhanger.
So this show is made by the same person who made
Hellsing Ultimate.
Hellsing Ultimate. Yeah. So and it has a
Great animation for that, by the way.
right. And-
Love that.
Well, and likewise on this show, I feel like it was great animation, or pretty good animation, and just action packed. But I feel like that's all it was. Like you were saying,
Exactly.
there is no real depth to it. It's just kind of like,
But doesn't
Even
gonna
the characters are underdeveloped,
Yeah.
in my
But
opinion.
doesn't the show know what it is and it tries to do what it's doing well and doesn't give a shit about everything else?
possibly, and then
Maybe.
and that's fine. But I feel like to be a complete show, you need to have it all. And this show is one note. And that's fine if that's all you're looking for. By all means, if you're just looking for a mindless, bloody, action-packed show, this is definitely a good one for you. But
If you're looking for character development and plot,
but to be considered a great show, you have to have it all. You have to, have that entertainment factor, but you also have to have a story and structure and developed characters.
I actually didn't think the plot was that horrible. I mean,
What was the plot?
the plot was that a country and a group of people that are being suppressed by a regime, I guess, that is forcing people into subservience is developing an uprising to overthrow their current government.
Okay.
And so they go from the very first moment of freeing the elf people or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the elf people, they go, it's almost like Valkyria Chronicles in a way, they're going through this military campaign, or like Berserk, you're going through this military campaign where you go from one place to another place, and it's like they're going to the dwarfs because the dwarfs can make the weapons and they want to free the dwarfs so that they can have even more soldiers.
Right.
And it's like, and they're going from point to point.
So I wonder if, because you're right, it does have.
but that just feels like exposition to me, not plot.
And there's very much like this very, very, albeit thin, chess match going on between the girl and the guy that sits in the hallway. The two, the girl with like the gothic Lolita dress,
Yeah.
and then the dude with the spirally eyes.
Yeah.
They're obviously controlling the strings behind all of it.
So there's something there. I agree with that there is obviously there is a core story that's being told. But
there's going to be a second season.
Well,
Of
I was
course.
just about to say,
But I
what
fe-
this feels like to me? The entirety of this, and maybe this is why I kind of had a hard time following it. The entirety of
Is a
this
setup.
season, it feels like exposition to the second season.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like its own complete season.
Well, and then on top of that, I think my biggest problem with it, which is what threw me off, is the writing, because there is a story, and although it is a basic story, it's something that we see all the time in movies and shows and all that stuff. Like it's a pretty straightforward, liberate the weak people and take over the bad guys, and
war strategy.
Yeah, which is a perfectly reasonable plot, but I feel like it was just told poorly.
Yeah.
I feel like
oh my god, the comedy though.
The comedy I did not
It
appreciate.
was awful.
It was unneeded.
So there were maybe like a handful of moments, if that, where the comedy felt like it enhanced the situation. But 9 times out of 10, they would throw the comedy in there as, I think from their perspective, a means of lessening the overwhelming sense of heaviness to the situation. But instead, it just ended up ruining what was otherwise a probably powerful moment.
I do agree with that. It
was very juvenile.
It was unneeded.
It was.
And dumb, like the raspberries, like thing where he's like smashing the raspberries. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, that is so unnecessary.
God, even all the way in episode 1, where they're having this really deep moment and they're trying to make how do you say his name?
I just call him,
Toyhasa or
just call him
something.
Shimazu.
Shimazu. They're trying to like tell Shimazu about like the difference in age, that like it's Nobunaga, and then 400 years prior than that it's Yoichi, and then Yoichi shows up with the chickens and is like, pluck the chickens, and then this weird music plays in the background, and
Pluck,
they're
pluck,
plucking.
pluck, pluck.
It's like, there was literally no point in having that there to relieve tension, because the tension hadn't even built that far yet.
Yeah.
And that's basically the comic quote unquote relief for the entire season.
Yeah,
And it just fell super flat for me.
The show had, I mean, like, I knew what the show was going to be from the beginning.
Sure.
And I wanted to watch a show where a guy kills people. And that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, you got that.
I mean, basically, like every episode, he was decapitating somebody.
Oh, yeah.
Or viciously
chasing after them, yelling at them
Dude,
to give them his head.
That second, that's
I do kind of, that was one piece of comedy that I enjoyed, was the
Yeah.
aspect they took the
But I don't think that was
beheading.
meant to be
That-
comedy.
It just came off funny to me.
that second episode was vicious.
Yeah.
When he elbows the heavy armored knight in the face.
Yeah.
Lands
When
on
he
it.
smashes that dude with his sheath.
Yeah, he lands on his chest, and the guy's defenseless, and he's just bashing his skull in with his sword sheath.
They don't hold
like-
back on the gore porn
I mean,
all.
it's intense. I mean, like he bashes him like 20 times, and there's like blood splattering and screaming. I mean, it's very aggressive, and like I think that that's what the show is. I mean, yeah, the plot isn't at this point super in depth, but I don't know that that's why people are watching it. Now, the comedy is not
It's bad.
It's not necessary at all. But I don't know that this show has any more or less of a plot than like Fate Zero. Fate Zero is like, oh, here's a bunch of characters that all have their own motivation, and we're gonna have a battle royale.
Well, but that's the thing. Fate Zero is character driven in a way that this one doesn't manage to be.
So what is this driven by?
The
Action?
violence,
Just action?
just action and violence. That's it.
I mean,
but
I-
I will. Go
I
ahead.
wouldn't say this is as good as Fate Zero.
No.
Not in animation or in execution, but I don't think the plot was really any better in either show.
Okay, so can I really quickly? There are two things that I really disliked and two things that I really liked about this. I think for me, and this might just be a complete and total bias for me, I have a hard time following historically or historical character driven anime where they're throwing out the names of these historical characters that everyone
Yep.
should know, and I just have no idea who any of them are. After I had to Google search 3 of them, and then after that I was like, I don't even care anymore.
It's worth. I mean, it probably is worth like Google searching the Battle of Sekigahara because I mean, like,
yeah. But
I
like
mean-
I knew Joan of Arc, but I had no idea who Yoichi was. And the reveal of Yoichi's character 400 years prior to Nobunaga should have been something like, oh man, this character, but I had no idea who he was.
that's probably not a bad other podcast topic. Would be like anime that would teach you the history of Japan.
Yeah, I got that.
Because I mean, the feudal history of Japan is very battle heavy and it's very interesting. It's not boring at all. Like the Warring States period in Japan is a super interesting period of time, and full of a lot of violence and bloodshed. And there's no wonder that they make tons of action animes out of it.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying. I mean, I think having a full knowledge of the historical context of all the characters and
It would have made
battles-
it more interesting for me for sure.
I mean, there's a whole group of otaku in Japan that are all about like the Warring States Japanese history.
Historical otaku.
I mean, Chiaki and I did a samurai battle reenactment with a bunch of these people, and they were basically like spouting off all these facts about the different, like, oh my God, you're this guy and you're this guy, like in the battle reenactment. And I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
know who the hell these people are, but apparently you do. I mean, those are the people that are probably watching this.
Yeah, probably.
The
So-
super history nerds.
I do also want to say, and I've been trying to do this lately, is I posted on the Facebook group page, hey, we're going to be reviewing the show. What do you guys think about it? I will say quite a few people commented on the post, and almost all of them said that they did find it enjoyable. It was, action-packed and fun in that way. However, all of them except for one person hated the comedy. Only one guy liked the comedy.
Oh, it's terrible.
And there's nothing against the guy who liked it. I mean, if you like
Oh, it's so
that
subjective. I
style
mean,
of comedy, then go for it. I just felt like it didn't enhance the plot at all.
Yeah.
I also wanted more from Dude in the Hallway.
Yeah.
I think when I was
think-
watching the first episode, the moment that he walks out of the woods and takes a step into the hallway, I was like, oh yes, give me this.
Right.
Give me this random ass thing that's happening right now that is completely outside of what I thought this anime was going to be. And then it ended up having barely any impact, I think, outside of like you know that that guy and the Lolita girl have involvement in this, but we don't really get more than that. Like mostly it focuses on the characters and the fighting and the war.
So I will say there is a second season that
Yeah.
it will be coming out.
Pretty
With that
obvious,
ending.
They haven't said when, but apparently there is supposed to be another season coming out. Which, of course, I mean not
Well, it's like
necessarily.
impossible for there not to be.
Yeah, well, unless it just wasn't received well, then they would just scrap it. But
I
they
don't imagine that's the case.
That is another thing that I will say. A lot of people that commented on the post I had mentioned were saying that it was only 12 episodes and they kind of just left you on a cliffhanger, really.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot left to be told.
Yeah, I mean, you may find that like the guy in the hallway with the glasses has more of an involvement later.
And I would love that.
I mean, we're not going to know until we get there, but I presume.
I understand the aspect of making a first season with the intent of a second season, but you also have to make the first season enjoyable. Like, we're not to say that it wasn't enjoyable at all for me. I did really enjoy the animation style, and I loved this sounds awful. I loved the violence of it because there's nothing that kind of throws me off more in an anime when it's distinctly violent, but they don't they go out of their way to make it less visually so.
Right.
Like a character will go for a decapitation, and then the camera will pan up to the sky, and you see a little blood splatter instead of actually seeing the decapitation.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to see like they're having a war and they're fighting with swords. Like you expect there to be some blood and some,
They could have censored the hell out of it, though. I mean, it happens a lot, and they didn't really do that.
And that I appreciated that for what it was. So, and the music was actually outside of the comic moments.
Yeah.
The music
The
was
music was
actually
good.
pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I thought the last few episodes were really good. The raid on that castle, totally epic. I mean, the ways that they sort of like when they took out the heavy armored soldiers.
Yeah.
With the girl's stonewall spell, I was like, wow, that was pretty cool. And then they used the stonewall to climb the wall of the castle. I mean, it was none of this is even spoilers because it's like you're watching it to see the action and to see the spectacle of it, and there's not really a whole lot of like key plot points to spoil. I really thought the last 3 episodes were really strong. I mean, it starts out with a really cool, sort of strategically planned out castle raid, which is really awesome, and then it shifts immediately into this and then it results in this battle between Shimazu and one of the Shinsengumi fighters, and that was a badass fight also.
Yeah, who was that guy?
Toshijiri, or I can't remember his name exactly, but I mean, it was it was very entertaining last 3 to 4 episodes, and then it does end sort of abruptly, but I mean, there's going to be more. I can't really complain all that much about it. I mean, honestly. I mean, was it like some mind-blowing feat of creative genius and storytelling? No, but for people who love watching the action-packed, shigurui, gore porn violence type stuff, this is a great option for you. I really think that it
was Toshizo Hijikata.
Hijikata. I don't know who that is, but I'm
surprised they didn't go with a more popular Shinsengumi member.
Maybe he is super. Well, no, we just don't know him.
Well, I mean, I've seen a number of shows on Shinsengumi, and he's not one of the guys I recognize.
Well, like I know that like some of the characters from like Rurouni Kenshin that have Shinsengumi aren't real characters. Like they're based on real people, but their names are different.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm not sure who exactly Hijikata is, but I'm sure he's probably well known. And I know that in the next couple episodes, who's the guy at the end that pops up? Oh, it's one of the key Tokugawa era people. I can't remember what his name was, but
I don't remember.
One of them pops up at the end. He's going to join the fight for the bad guys.
Yeah, there were some people that you saw like in the opening sequence of the show that never appeared. Like the guy with the battleship that was in.
Oh, I think it was Toyotomi. Toyotomi.
But like you never see him in the show.
Yeah, well, he pops up at the end. He was the guy at the end where they're like, oh, Toyotomi whatever is going to join the fight. Oh, and he's like one of the most famous characters from Japanese history. So, which I guess is a huge deal. But we're like whatever. But I mean, to them, it's a huge deal.
I got nothing. Like
I don't know any of those people.
Anyway, so I don't have much else to say about it.
No, I think we pretty much covered it. So
I think it was an action-packed show with really good animation. And I got what I wanted out of it. I didn't fall asleep 10 times during it. I didn't fall asleep even once.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
I fell asleep once.
So.
But I was watching it at 5 a.m, so just gotten off work.
Actually, I did fall asleep during like the 4th episode, but I was intoxicated, so I kind of just passed out, honestly.
That happens.
Yeah.
So, all right, so scorers?
Okay. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I thought the show was pretty good. I think people who watched it wanted to see violence, and if that's what you wanted, that's what you got. And I don't think people were watching it for really any other purpose. So I think it would be really odd for someone to watch this and go, oh, it totally sucked. Because, I mean, you're not watching it for romance or comedy or drama, really, because that's not what you would expect. And if you wanted to see action and violence, you got that. So that being said, I can't really give it as good of a score as something like Fate Zero, especially after drawing that like sort of like thin plot comparison. So I'm going to give it 3.5 decapitated soldiers out of 5. It's close to a 4 for me. I think it was pretty good, but these two guys over here are going to pull it down anyway.
So I think being objective about it, I do think that I went in with too high expectations, I think, is my issue with this. I have multiple friends who watched it, or watched the beginning of it at least, and really liked it. And so I was expecting more. I think you're right, Mitsugi. If you're going into it, just all you want is action and violence, that's what you get. But I wanted more character development and a little bit more of a plot. So, and I just, honestly, I hated the comedy so much that by the end it got grating.
It was terrible.
So I can't, just my own personal response to this anime, I can't give it more than a 2.5 Hellsing Ultimate level animation out of 5.
All right. So it was certainly, in my opinion, obviously clearly very action packed, well animated. It wasn't boring at any point, although it felt like at times that they were trying to make it seem more complicated than it was. I think a lot of the issues were with the writing, just in general, and then of course, like I mentioned with the dub, all those problems with the characters with accents. But I don't know if that can necessarily affect the score because it's kind of an after point. So yeah, overall, it was a pretty good show. I think we've gone into enough to say like what we didn't like about it. So I'm just gonna give you the score. Going into it, I was planning on a 3.5, and that's what I'm gonna stick with, 3.5. So
Kimiko's all on her own. Look
Yeah.
at that.
Hey, this isn't my style, dudes.
yeah,
You're off on your Kimiko Island.
I feel like
I'm okay with
I
that.
feel
I
like-
usually live here.
I feel like it had problems for sure. It's nowhere near perfect, but if you're just looking for mindless violence and action, then this is a decent show for you.
So that averages to a 3.2, which is a 3. We'll give it a 3.
It's not bad.